The ringing of my phone cut through the quiet of my apartment, but it was the name on the screen that made my stomach twist into a knot. 9 years of silence. And suddenly there was my stepmother's name, glowing accusingly up at me. I hesitated, then answered, pressing the phone to my ear with trembling fingers. Sandra had kept my number from when I lived at home, one of the few constants I'd maintained over the years. Olivia. Her voice came through with that familiar, sugary tone that had always masked her true intentions. We need to talk about Nick's college tuition. I froze, my free hand gripping the edge of my kitchen counter so hard my knuckles turned white. Not hello, not how have you been after we threw you out of your home when you were barely an adult, just straight to what she wanted from me. I'm paying for Ryan's college, and you know what? It's only fair you do the same for Nick. He's starting this fall, and we can't afford it without taking on massive debt. The audacity struck me like a physical blow. The same people who had tossed both my brother and me onto the street the moment we turned 18 were now expecting me to fund their remaining child's education, a child they had kept, a child they hadn't abandoned. My name is Olivia. I'm 26 and a corporate manager. This is the story of how I reclaimed my worth from the family that discarded me. I had been 17 when my mother died after a long battle with a chronic illness. The grief crushed me, sent me spiraling into depression. Within 6 months, my father remarried, bringing Sandra and her son Nick into our home. I tried my best to form a connection with them. I really did. Sandra was pleasant enough in those early days, and Nick and I developed something resembling friendship. Then came my 18th birthday. Instead of celebration, I received an eviction notice from my own father. "You're an adult now," he had said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Time to make your own way." No warning, no preparation, no help. Just suddenly homeless with nothing but what I could carry. My boyfriend, Tom, took me in that night. I still remember sitting on his apartment floor, surrounded by the few garbage bags of belongings I'd managed to pack, sobbing until I couldn't breathe. For 4.5 years, I worked nearly full-time while attending college. Some nights, I'd fall asleep at my desk, textbook pages sticking to my cheek. The exhaustion was constant, bone deep, but I kept going. I had to. There was no safety net, no family to fall back on. Just me, fighting for my future one shift, one class, one exam at a time. After graduation, I landed a management position with a salary that still sometimes feels unreal to me. Suddenly, I could pay off my student loans. I could save money. I could breathe. My brother Ryan was my lifeline through it all. 10 years old when our mother died, he was the only family I had left. We texted daily, and I visited him whenever I could manage it, though our father made those visits increasingly difficult. In August 2019, Ryan called me, his voice small and shaking. "Dad's kicking me out. I turn 18 next week, and he says I need to leave." The cycle was repeating itself, the cruelty extending to my baby brother. Tom and I immediately opened our home to him. 3 simple rules: stay out of trouble, help with chores, and keep up his grades. Ryan not only followed these rules, but exceeded our expectations, even getting a part-time job to contribute to groceries. He was determined, like me, to rise above what had been done to us. When Ryan started college last summer, I made him a promise. Maintain those good grades, and I would cover his tuition. He took that promise seriously, bringing home nothing but A's his first year. The pride I felt watching him succeed despite everything was overwhelming. Then came the call that changed everything. After hanging up with Sandra, I sat at my kitchen table, fury and disbelief battling inside me. The phone began ringing again almost immediately. Sandra calling back, then my father, then aunts and uncles and cousins, who hadn't spoken a word to me in 9 years. Apparently, Sandra still had their contact information and had immediately launched a family-wide campaign against me. Text messages flooded in. "How could you be so selfish? Playing favorites is disgusting. After everything your father did for you." The accusations piled up, each one more bewildering than the last. Something didn't add up. How did they even know I was paying for Ryan's college? And why was the entire extended family suddenly involved in my financial decisions? I called the college administration office the next day, asking how my personal financial information had been disclosed. The woman on the phone grew quiet, then apologetic. "We'll need to investigate this. Student financial information is strictly confidential." 2 days later, I had my answer. A friend of Sandra's worked in the administration office and had accessed Ryan's financial records, then shared the information with Sandra. The violation made me physically ill. Someone had pried into my private financial information and shared it for the sole purpose of trying to pressure me into paying for Nick's education. My lawyer was already drafting the paperwork when another realization hit me. The texts from extended family members, there was something off about them. The specific accusations, the way they spoke about me running away from home. I reread them carefully, pieces clicking into place. I scheduled a video call with my cousin Jason, the one person who had always been kind to me before I was pushed out of the family. The shock on his face when I told him the truth was genuine. "Wait, what? Your dad told everyone you chose to leave, that you ran away from home and broke his heart." Jason's confusion mirrored my own. He said the same thing when Ryan left, that both his children abandoned him when he needed them most. 9 years of lies. 9 years of being painted as the ungrateful child who abandoned her grieving father. 9 years of relatives believing I had simply walked away from my family by choice. The betrayal cut deeper than the original wound. Not only had my father thrown me out of my home the moment I was legally an adult, but he had destroyed my reputation within the family to protect his image. I hosted a video call that night with every relative who had contacted me. "I need to clear something up," I said, looking into the faces of people who had once been my family. "I didn't run away from home when I was 18. My father gave me 24 hours to pack my things and leave after my birthday. The same thing happened to Ryan last year." The silence was deafening. Some faces registered shock, others disbelief, a few showed dawning horror. I put myself through college working nearly full-time. I paid off my own student loans. I built my career without any help. And now, after 9 years of silence, the first time any of you reach out to me is to demand I pay for my stepbrother's education. A stepbrother whose parents kept him, supported him, and didn't throw him out on the street. More calls came after that, from relatives trying to apologize, from my father and Sandra trying to damage control, from Nick himself, suddenly friendly again after years of minimal contact. I blocked them all, every last one. If 9 years wasn't enough time for any of them to reach out and check on me, to question the story they'd been told, then I had no interest in what they had to say now. The employee who had violated my privacy was promptly removed from her position. My lawyer assured me we had a solid case for both the privacy violation and the harassment that followed. Tomorrow, Ryan, Tom, and I are moving to a new city, 45 minutes away from the place where we've lived for years. It's a move we've been planning for months, unrelated to this recent drama, but the timing feels right. A fresh start, a clean break. As I pack the last of our belongings, I find myself surprisingly at peace. The family that should have protected me instead discarded me, lied about me, and then tried to use me. But in their absence, I built something stronger, a chosen family founded on mutual respect and genuine care. I think about Nick sometimes, about the friendship we might have had if circumstances were different. But he made his choice when he aligned himself with my father and Sandra, when he joined their campaign to pressure me into paying for his education. They tried to make me feel responsible for Nick's future, tried to place that burden on my shoulders after taking no responsibility for mine, but I refused to carry guilt that isn't mine. I survived. I thrived, despite everything they did. And I will continue to do so with the family I've chosen, far away from those who only see me as a resource to be exploited rather than a person to be loved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to others, but what you refuse to let them do to you. And sometimes cutting someone out of your life isn't abandonment, it's salvation.